Hello, hosts and travelers. Welcome to the podcast Hosting Your Home. Each week, around the world, millions of guests stay in other people's homes using the Airbnb platform. Debi Hertert looks for stories that come from these connections. Listen in as we hear stories that teach us the human side of hosting your home.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Hosting Your Home podcast. I'm Debi, and this is the second episode in our Hosts of Color series. My intention in hosting these interviews is to help to raise the consciousness of hosts everywhere regarding white privilege. Because of the demonstrations in the Portland area, I've realized that these conversations need to happen. I am very grateful to the hosts who have agreed to talk with me. C.L. Reed is a warm and charming host based in Riverside, California. She manages properties in Palm Springs, the Riverside area, and soon in North Carolina and Florida. She's a person of color, a single mom, and a really great lady. We talk about Instant Book, names, hospitality, entitlement, and single women travelers. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation and have some takeaways for yourself. Okay, so I want to start our podcast by thanking you, CL, for being willing to do this with me. I think that around the world, people know that Portland has been a focal point, a center of demonstrations and support for the Black Lives Matter movement, and I believe that it's helping to wake many of us up to our own lack of understanding, to put it mildly. And I am one of those people. And my intention in this podcast series is to help us understand what it's like for being a person of color in this industry, in the short-term rental industry. And if we can do anything to help raise our consciousness and make the world a better place for travelers and for hosts, that's my intention. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing who you are and some of your experiences. And I know this may get to be emotional, and I hope you're willing to just push forward through that with me.
Thank you, Debi. I am so excited that you picked me, of all people, to have this conversation with. So I hope I represent everyone's interest well.
Thank you.
Black people, brown people, people of color, women, AARP, all of us.
Awesome.
I hope I represent us all well and that I can provide insight as I see it. I don't know everything. I can't represent anyone except myself as an overall, but I hope I can bring something to the table. So thank you for having me.
Understood. Let's start with who you are, where you are, and a little bit about your business. Maybe a little bit about your background, where you are in the world, how you got into the industry.
Okay. So let me see if I can give you a short version. I've always been involved in real estate in one way or another. I've owned properties. I've been a landlord. I've sold properties. Rental properties. I've always had people, if not relatives, renters in my home. I was a single mother of one child. And so to make ends meet, you do what you have to do. And if renting out a room helped meet those ends, then that's what I did. So that kind of moved into empty nester. When she went off to college, here I was with this home and empty rooms. Mm-hmm. And so she went to college and she got into Airbnb. I had signed up for Airbnb when she lived at home and decided I didn't want absolute strangers in the house coming and going.
And
when
where's home?
Home is Riverside, California.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah, it is now. Home has been quite a few states in the U.S., but I was working for a company that relocated in 2000. and I did not want to relocate with the company. And so I asked the company to move me back to California. I used to live in Los Angeles, and my parents had retired out to Riverside. And I thought, well, I have a young child. I want them close to their grandparents. I'll move out closer to where they are, which is out of Los Angeles. And then fast forward, I signed up with a platform and decided I didn't want strangers in my home. Any roommates that I've had or renters, I knew them and I was helping them out per se. But then this platform came out and I signed up for it and I went, don't know if I want absolute strangers with my young daughter here. So I stayed on the platform, but I tabled it. And then she went off to college and she started operating on a platform and said, Mom, you really need to do something with those empty rooms. You need to open up your account. I'm gone. Do something with it. And I thought, okay, now is the time. And so...
what year was that, CO?
So I signed up in 2009.
Okay.
I didn't do anything with it until 2014.
Okay.
And in 2014, I started the process, which was kind of like a gem because where I'm located, I'm very near the country's #1 skydiving drop zone. I'm just under 3 miles. It was perfect. Skydivers come in, they eat, sleep, skydive, repeat. That's it. And it was wonderful. It was perfect. And they had been looking for years for something in my area. And there wasn't anything very close as I am. And so that's how I started out I had 4 additional rooms in my home. And I just kept having skydivers coming and going. And it was wonderful. And then the pandemic. So, but in the interim, I went from home share, as we call it, to other locations, condos, co-hosting, that sort of thing. So my business was still able to stay afloat. I just wasn't doing the home share aspect of it.
Sure. So let's talk about any experiences or stories that you'd like to share about prejudice that you have confronted in your work.
Do you mean in short-term rental hosting specifically, or just as a Black person in America? We have to drill down.
I think they both apply, but I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. So in the industry specifically, I don't believe, been impacted as far as, does someone stay with me because of my race? I have a niche market in skydivers. Skydivers are generally very easygoing, carefree people. I have hosted people literally from all over the world, and they have all been wonderful. I think sometimes maybe they're taken aback when they see that I'm African American because of the misconceptions and perceptions they've been presented with. And then when they meet me, they think, wow, all people of color are not like what we were told or what we thought or what we saw on TV. Now, my goal is not to change their perception, but if their perception gets changed along the way, score 1 for the team. Because people are people at the end of the day. And that's how I look at it. If something happens to me because I've had people, cut in front of me in line. I've had people, if I'm standing next to a Caucasian person at a counter to be assisted, they'll look at us both and go to the Caucasian person on an assumption of what? But I try not to see it as race. I try to go, that's that person. That's their perception. If I have somebody scream at me in the parking lot or say something in a store, I go, what's happened in that person's background that has caused them to just lose it today.
Good.
Maybe they didn't take their meds today. I try not to associate it immediately with race until you say something unkind that definitely says this is a racial issue. And then I still wonder what's happened in your lifetime that made you respond that way to me because I have a different complexion, or that I'm a woman, or that I'm 56, or what? What is it? And so I try and look at it from that perspective. You can't always. Sometimes it is what it is. And you have to deal with it at that level.
You mentioned co-hosting. I'm assuming that you have your properties on Airbnb.
Yes.
And
I didn't want to plug any particular platforms, so I was just leaving that evasive. But I'm on several platforms. Yes,
okay,
Airbnb
so
is one of them.
more than Airbnb. Okay, good. The reason that I brought up Airbnb specifically is because they have had issues, with prejudicial behavior, both on the host side and, on the guest side. How do you feel about the way they've handled that?
How do I feel about the way the platform has handled it, or the way that hosts have handled it?
Yeah, the way the platform has handled it. Do you feel safe using the platform, and do you feel like they have a responsibility to educate travelers?
This is kind of a hard one for me because I like that they instituted you can't see anyone's picture until.
Okay.
Because that does make it almost an even playing field. I don't like that they will let people book with really interesting names. Black Hat Cat. Who is that? I need to know that they are the first level security in ensuring that my property will not be mishandled. And so with that tells me that they've run the person's ID, that the IDs and the credit cards match, that the names are factual, that the images match something. It's not someone's cat, boat, guitar, cartoon. And so that's important to me. I do like I cannot see a picture ahead of time. I would like to know that they have taken care of all of that. And not to get ahead of the horse, but what I have been finding is that through my personal deeper dive, and someone can refute this if they like, they don't do that frontline security. When you look into, they say that they check identity, and you read the paragraph that says it is farmed out to a third party. And that third party checks against other neighbors, a water bill, a something. So Airbnb, to me, doesn't even know that this person is actual, factual, reputable. They have something deeply buried in their system that says you can require verification requirement. When you go and select that, first you must verify yourself, which any good host would do without hesitation. Then you can request that guests be verified. It's hard for you to find that option, though. I want people to know to go to help, go to can I ask that a guest be verified, and choose that. Yes. Click that link that says verification required. That, from my understanding of what I've read, does require a government ID be presented. Not just that third-party option of, oh, yeah, we sort of kind of verified that person.
Yeah, I think that is available only to people on Instant Book.
I do not have Instant Book. I've taken it off.
Yeah, me too.
Right. So you can get the verification required. You just have to go find it. It's very deep in the system. Again, go to help and look up the question, can I require guests to be verified? Click that. and then it will show you the 3 steps to do the verification required.
You know, a few years ago, we were at we were in LA for the Open, the Airbnb Open, and we spoke with someone who was involved in that part of the platform, and he told us then that not everyone gets verified, and that it costs them about $50 a person to do that background check.
And it also slows down the process. Yeah. So why would they want to do that? Yeah. They are hoping, and I was going to say, there's no 100% guarantee that verification requirement, again, they're supposed to be my first line approach. That doesn't mean I should be lazy. Right. I'm still going to go to that person's profile, see if they have any reviews, see what their review of other hosts are through, Airbnb review. You can download that app on your desktop only. Yeah. It doesn't work on the phone. And see what they've said about other hosts. Mm-hmm. Is that 100%? It is not. I've read that some hosts, check out people's Facebook, check out people's social media. I don't take that next step. Mm-hmm. But if it came down to any properties, I think that, are going for $2,000-$3,000 over a few days, over a few weeks, I would do that. Mm-hmm. I would run a background check if I'm doing that type of servicing.
Do you have your picture on your listing sites?
I do.
Okay.
Yes. And as I said, I don't know that it has stopped anyone from staying with me because they see that I'm Black. I don't want to flippantly say I don't care, but I don't care. If you see that I'm Black and that concerns you and you don't want to stay, you've missed out on a great stay. You've missed out on home-baked cookies. You've missed out on, feeling as though you're welcome here. And I can't change that for you. So I don't believe that it's caused anyone not to stay with me. And then specifically in the skydiving community, it's a small but large community. A lot of my business is word of mouth because they're like, oh, you've got to stay there. She'll treat you like mom. You got to stay. So, again, I've had people from so many countries who I think at their base root have no racial issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, otherwise they wouldn't have booked with you, right?
Exactly.
So that's the good part about the host picture being out there is that you automatically filter to other people. That's not possible when you are accepting people who have a picture of their dog or cat.
Exactly.
Or a funny name. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I think, again, I'm glad I don't see pictures because for me, my prejudice is if you look like you follow a 70s rock star and, you've got the tongue sticking out and the 2 fingers in there. I'm like, oh, are they going to party at my place like that? Well, that might have been their Halloween costume, but so, no, I'm glad I don't see pictures.
Now, do you, while we're on this topic, just real briefly, do you qualify, do you educate the guests that come to you that obviously are not following the quote, air quote, rules?
What do you mean, do I educate?
Well, so do you feel like you are getting a different kind of traveler right now?
I do, only because, again, in my place and the other places that I'm dealing with in my home, when I say my place, I mean my home share. Mm-hmm. And in other places, we were getting international travelers. We were getting snowbirds, particularly in Palm Springs. We were getting Canadians. And so now all of that's off the table and we're getting locals. Whereas before I would not book a local in any of my locations if their city was within 2 hours, because that meant to me generally, especially if they were trying to do one night, they really had to let me know they were staying this one night because they were hot air ballooning in the morning, and that starts at like 5 a.m., kind of thing. Or they were taking a flight, and this was a layover in my other locations. Mm-hmm. But generally, one nights meant, because of where we're located, hookups. Oh. And hookups are just too expensive for me. hookups and party night. We're going to come to your place and party because we can't party at my place. So we did not normally do locals.
Yeah.
With the pandemic, it has become necessary for us to do locals because they're now feeding the kitty. And these are still, so if you consider, if you know anything about Los Angeles, and it's about 2 hours, depending on traffic, from Los Angeles to, say, Palm Springs. They want a getaway.
Yeah.
They've been cooped up, tied up. There's things to do in Palm Springs you can't do in Los Angeles. It's, my places are by the pool. It's a nice retreat. So we do take the locals now. Mm-hmm. But we will not do one night. We will not do 2 nights on the weekend. We will not. I thoroughly check. I don't do Instant Book. I took it off of all my properties because I did start out with Instant Book. I rode that rail and I got off at the next exit. Instant Book is great for some locations. You just have to know what works for your listing, your area. Why are people the draw? And Instant Book doesn't work for us.
The reason for my question is because I have heard, read, and talked with people who feel like we have a new breed of travelers right now. And they're younger, they're maybe first-time users of the platform. They don't really understand the rules of staying in a vacation rental versus a vacation rental versus a hotel. And so it feels to me like we have more of an onus to educate these folks on proper behavior. So that's where I'm coming from. Do you do any kind of that with your potential guests?
Thank you. You know what? There was my mulberry bush, right? I went down.
That's all right.
I went off the rail somewhere. So yes and no. And you're absolutely correct. Not only young, but there are people who just have not used Airbnb.
Yes.
And so as far as education, I have to pull back on my momming. I can be very motherly, and I don't want to do that. I'm dealing with adults. I think your messages to the traveler before they arrive is very important. And what I have said to individuals in my welcome message, several key things. One is read all the rules and regulations before you come. And then I say in the next message, once you get in the location, on the entry credenza is an operational rules and good neighbor handbook manual. Familiarize yourself before your adventure begins. In my you're coming today or tomorrow, I give out the code 24 hours. And not the code, let me apologize. I give out you're arriving tomorrow. This is what you need to do to arrive and to get in. Your code will start at a certain time. I go, return the place the way you received it. Now, if anywhere in there you've missed, don't trash my place. I'm not sure. I think I was very thorough. The rules are here. Read them. The rules are in the unit. Read them. Return the place the way you found it. People will say, oh, treat this as you would treat. No. We've seen how some people live. Don't treat my place like that.
Right.
Return it the way you received it.
Okay.
It was clean. You don't have to strip the bed. I don't want you to, because I want my team to be able to look at the sheets and see what they have to treat as far as stains or throw out or whatever. But, when you walked in, the trash wasn't overspilling in the trash can. There wasn't a sink full of dishes. Things weren't all over the place. I don't ask you to clean it, but do not return it to me looking like a 70s rock star party happened in a hotel room.
Yeah, great.
So that's how I educate.
Okay.
That's how I educate.
So, CL, I think that what I'm hearing from you, and I just would like to reiterate or emphasize or go back to any feelings of hosting behavior that you have experienced that have not been positive. or that might be construed as negative issues that have come up because you're a person of color?
I don't believe that I would really have to think hard and long, Debbie, about racial issues. I think what I find with people is if they don't get their way, and I'm not talking about African Americans, I'm just talking about guests. Mm-hmm. You know, you try to please guests. I try to not so much bend over backwards. I am hospitable. That period, I'm hospitable. I don't give away the farm because this is business. Yeah. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. But I am hospitable. I will do what I can to make your stay before, during, and after with us as pleasant as possible. But if I get that one-off guest who is entitled, we throw that word around a lot, mm-hmm. who is demeaning, you just can't please them. You just can't, no matter what you do. And they will go and say, oh, you're doing this because you're Black. No, I'm doing this because you're being a not nice person. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to swear on your podcast, Debbie. This has nothing to do with race. You're not being a nice person. Mm-hmm. And so you have caused me to step out of character and be unnice back. But you have to really push my buttons to do that, to get me to that point. So I think some people may say, oh, you're throwing out the race card now. And no, I'm responding to your behavior.
Excellent. Because the important thing is that you are validated and that you're not feeling discriminated against. And mm-hmm. That's fantastic news. Mm-hmm. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah. I've not experienced that yet, but I'm also operating in different circles, different locations. There are valid occurrences out there where people see your picture. I'm talking about African Americans. Their pictures are seen, or just by their name. Just because our name is not Susie or Tim or Peter, maybe it's LaQuanda or LaDawn or Raphael or whatever, Javier, Jose. People go, oh, I don't want them staying here. Mm-hmm. Why not? You've assumed based on name or picture that this will be the worst guest you've ever had. And I once posted in one of our Facebook short-term rental groups, just as I wanted to take an unofficial poll. And I asked in the group, how many hosts have had a person of color destroy their property? And I got a lot of backlash that I was race baiting and that I wanted to start World War III. And I didn't. I sincerely wanted our group to take a look at their personal behavior. Mm-hmm. Just take a look. Just reflect on, how many African American or people of color or anything but white have come in and torn up my location. Some responded, some did not. They were offended. Those that responded were like, well, I haven't had any. Yeah. So my question to them was, then why don't you rent to them right off? The majority could agree that when their place has been damaged, destroyed, property stolen, broken, lost, not ruling out all African Americans, the majority were Caucasian people that had done that to them because that's who they rent to. Yeah. So why not take a chance on an African American or person of color? Mm-hmm. Why not? You may find they'll treat your place better than...
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
So what pops up for me now is it feels to me, at least I know it's true in my community here in Portland, Oregon, that we have very few people of color who are hosts. And so I'm wondering what your experience is with that, if there are more folks out there that we can reach out to, that I don't know if there's a way to help other people, if we even know that they're there. I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking, I wish that there are more hosts of color here in Portland. And I don't know how to go about doing anything about that.
There are many hosts of color, believe it or not. It just depends on the area.
Okay.
You may not see many hosts of color in Maine, right?
Just because the population is lower.
Exactly. Okay. But have you checked Atlanta? They're booming.
Awesome.
Have you checked Florida or Texas or New Orleans? There are a lot of African American hosts.
Good.
It just depends, like, Washington State. You're probably not going to see a lot.
Yeah.
It's just, but Los Angeles, plenty. It depends on Montana. You're not going to see a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
We live there, but when you look at the numbers overall, you may only see a small percentage who are hosts. Okay. I am connected to many hosts, and just like we have short-term rental in Florida, in Portland, short-term rental Facebook platforms for those kind of things, we also have African-American or Black short-term rental hosts, Facebook sites. But because you're not in them,
I don't know they exist. Yeah.
You don't know they exist. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so that's where you and I have these conversations, and you and I bridge the gap. And I go, African-American circle or people of color circle, Debi's doing this podcast. Debi's in Portland. Are you in the Portland area? Get in Debi's Facebook groups, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of communicating, networking, which is my favorite thing to do, and sharing that information. So if you suddenly see a boom in your Facebook groups in Portland,
that'd be awesome.
Because I told them, go check out Debi. Yeah. But yes.
Okay. Now, so I think we've done a good job on the hosting piece of this. I would also like to ask you about your own traveling experience. Do you do anything that helps to make you feel safer or more protected when you travel and you choose a vacation rental?
Do you mean as a woman, as a Black person, as a what?
How about as a Black woman?
How about as a woman?
All right, let's go there first.
Yes, I take many precautions as a woman. And a lot of them are secondhand to me. You go in the room and you do a sweep and you leave the door open, and what do the keys look like, and what does the key code look like? What does the location look like? Is it well lit? Who else is staying in the location? What are the accesses to the location? That sort of thing. So I take those necessary precautions. Do I know anyone in the area? Do I know where the hospitals are? Where's the emergency area? What are the hallways? Well, all of that is an immediate for me.
Wow.
All of it. It's just, I've been ingrained. I've taken training. It's just what I do.
Wow. Do you stay in home shares as well? Or
I have.
Okay.
I have, pardon me. And even in home shares, and I want my guests to feel the same. When I walk them through, I go, this is your room. Here's your keys. I'm the only other one with a set or the key code or whatever. I give them additional locks inside the room so that they can feel comfortable at night, knowing that nobody's going to key themselves in, walk in, or whatever. This is, the windows, these are locked. When I go in a place, I check all the windows. Are they locked? So I do not want to wake up with the boogeyman on my chest.
Yeah.
I do all those things. Even when I stay in hotels, I move furniture because I don't believe in that little flip latch. I've seen how it can be manipulated.
So you'll
on the
move
hotel doors.
Something over in front of the door?
Even if it's something to make noise, even though I'm a light sleeper, to make enough noise for me to get up and respond. But if there's something I can put in front of it, I'll do it. Yeah, I do not want to wake up and there's somebody, saying good morning, and they shouldn't be there. Yeah. So, and even when I'm traveling, I have on my phone, it's called Life 360, so that my daughter can track me, my boyfriend can track me, my mother can track me at any time. They can see where I am. And, people are like, well, I'm grown and nobody, no, I need somebody to know.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I take as many precautions as possible. You want to, of course, park in a lit area. If you have to park in a garage, park closest to the stairwell or the elevator. Or, don't be ashamed or embarrassed to ask security to walk you to your car. That's what they get. That's part of their services,
I like that.
I can't control what goes on in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I cannot. I have a security door on my front door. It's,
okay.
That's kind of typical in California, though, that most people have the metal security door. Mm-hmm. It's no indication of my neighborhood. It's an indication of me as a single woman wanting to be safe, that when I open my front door, someone is not standing right there and can force their way in. So if that's a screen door, if that's a Ring camera, I speak to them through the Ring camera. If it's the metal security door. Mm-hmm. If the neighborhood is what's considered urban or gentrifying or up and coming, I don't have a problem with that if it's stated in the listing. Some people like being in the hustle and bustle of downtown and urban and city never sleeps. That's your audience. That's who you should cater to. Okay. But do not cater to suburbia, or do not promote to suburbia, and we can't handle that sudden influx of city life. Mm-hmm. Now, if I know I'm going to the city because there's a special event, I have to come to expect that there's going to be city life. Yeah. And as nicely, without lying, as you can describe that in your listing, then do so.
I was talking with Krhea on another podcast, and he told me that he would not go up to the host's house late at night. They had a car issue. They had some trouble with the car, and so they were delayed by a few hours. And he said it was like almost midnight. He says he was not going to walk up to the house that late at night because of the safety. His wife and his kids were in the car, and he said he just wasn't going to do that.
Right.
So
that's something I didn't mention, Debbie. That the easiest way for me to say this is, and I discussed this with my boyfriend and my brothers, and used to with my dad before he died, those kind of things. Men don't. So here, it's a comparison, Black people and white people, and men and women. Men don't immediately have a concern for being mugged in a parking lot. They don't immediately have a concern for being assaulted in the elevator. They don't immediately have a concern that they can't walk down the street at night and go to the store. They don't immediately have a concern. And actually, my boyfriend and I just had this conversation this weekend. He has no security door between his front door and the street. So when you open the door, the person is there. And I said, I don't feel safe, because he's like, well, what's the big deal? He doesn't think that way. Why do I have to worry about just opening the front door? And I said, because you're not a woman. Why would you think that? Why would you, when you get in the elevator, you just get in the elevator. I said, I have to stand near the buttons. I got to grab my purse. I have to put myself in a position to kick you in the person. If you're going, I said, you just get in the elevator. I said, women can't think that way. So believe it or not, Debbie, the same exists. And this is a conversation we have over and over. And Black people can't understand why it's hard for people to connect with this. You wouldn't have thought, your husband would have walked right up to the house, wouldn't have thought anything of it.
Exactly.
I'm a man. I need help. My wife and kids in the car. Black people can't do that. We get shot first. Mm-hmm. We get someone's breaking in first. We don't get there's a man with his children and his wife stranded in the car coming to get help. Why is that not the first? Why are African Americans immediately demonized, criminalized, must be here for nefarious reasons? Why? He should not have had to think that first, but that's how we live every day. every moment, even if it's not spoken out loud, it's subconscious. We go, can I walk in this store? Do I have to walk in with my hands in my pockets? I used to tell my daughter, she went to, the majority of the students in her school were Caucasian. If you go in the store with your friends, keep your hands in your pockets. Why? Because she gets followed for stealing.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
While the friends are stealing, because she's the African American. If you go to and I've heard people say, you shouldn't put that fear in her. That's putting life into her. She gets to walk away and live another day. If you go in the store with your friends, or if they go in the store and you decide to stay outside, go in the store. Because now you're looked at as a lookout because you're African American. We've had instances, I've had experiences where you're standing there with other people of all colors or whatever, and say an argument, a fight, or something breaks out. Do you know who gets grabbed? The African American. What did you do? And you go, I was walking past. I don't even know what's going on over there. You must have done something. This is what we deal with every day. Every day we walk out our house, we have to go, this might be the day I get pulled over. This might be the day I get blamed. This might be the day I get accused. This might be the day it's assumed. When you see all those things that says driving while black, walking while black, talking while black, it's not the exception. It's not overblown. It's our everyday experiences. And when you say you're white privilege, when we're talking about white privilege, you've never had that.
No.
You can't relate to it. And as most human beings, not just black, white, other, if you've not had it happen to you, it doesn't exist. Or
I have to say that is part of my waking up process right now. There was a Travel Portland video done by some of the top hoteliers in the city. There were four people of color who talked about their life experiences. I never realized that this was a walk through life in fear.
Daily. It's PTSD.
Holy cow.
Daily. But it's always in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
There's a mask. We don't show it, but it's there. We're always ready for, as we say, things to pop off. We're always like, okay, what's going to happen today, or what's going to, and you don't want to live like that. We should not. We should be able to walk around as happy and free. We should be able not to have that, what they call the conversation with our children. I should not have to tell my daughter, keep your hands in your pockets when you walk in the store.
Yeah.
She should be able to walk in there and twirl a baton. But she can't because she's African American. There are a separate set of rules to govern yourself by, and we shouldn't have to. We're people. We're Americans. We're human. Mm-hmm. Why? And unfortunately, some people are of the, you'll hear people say, well, if they would have just complied. We don't walk away from that and breathe. Still in compliance. Why were we pulled over in the first place? Then there's nothing to comply to.
So as we talk about white privilege and waking up to a lifestyle that we weren't aware of, is there anything that we can do? I mean, this conversation is as far as I've gotten. In fact, I have to say I was terrified to do these podcasts because I was afraid that I would say something wrong and I would hurt feelings. And I talked with a person who said, Debi, if your intention is good, and we know it is, then have the difficult conversations. But I don't know where to go from here. What can we do? Is there something that we can do? I mean, do you think that our culture will... I thought it had changed, CL. I thought we were so expansive in bridging our cultural gaps, especially in hosting, that I'm shocked?
Doing what you can do. I always say, do what you can, use what you have. And, use what you have, anyway, you're doing it. You're using your platform, you're using your voice, you're opening up doors, you're having this conversation. It's going out to the masses. It may open the eyes of one or two, and that's okay. You've opened those one or two eyes. Not to bring politics into this, I'm not going to get into it. However people voted, that's their choice. I think this past election has shown that we're still very much divided, whether it be policies, race, economics, whatever it is. This has shown us and if people look at this and go, we're not divided, this race has shown us we're very much divided for whatever reasons people voted for whomever. So again, and your heart, Debi, it's a heart issue. Your heart shows that you want to see change because you didn't just sit back and go, oh, well, everything's great. Like you said, like you thought it was doing better, but now you see, no, there's still a problem. And I'm going to use my platform to help change that. What I suggest is people take a long, hard look at what their heart says, what their heart shows. And again, of all the people that have trashed your place, how many of them were people of color? If you can't say one, if you can't say there was 1 out of 3,000, or that there was one, then why not open up your doors to others? Why do you keep going back to the same pocket of individuals if they're the ones tearing your place up? Mm-hmm. Try something different. Mm-hmm. Be willing to cross that bridge. Be willing to get to know people. Open your eyes. This, for me, is very important. People often like to associate with those that look like themselves. Mm-hmm. Whether all Black people, you feel comfort in that, or all white people, or all Asian people, or all Latina people, you feel comfortable. I get that. But if you stand in a room, I just honestly want you to stand in a room, Debi, and go, everybody in this room looks like me. Mm-hmm. Your circle of influence is not big enough.
Yes.
If everybody in that room, I don't care if it's one other person or 3,000 other people, if the majority of them look like you, there are some bridges you're not crossing. Yeah. Your circle of influence is not big enough. And that's where the work begins. And
I agree.
Try to be that brave person that walks across the room and introduces yourself to that person of color. Don't worry about what your neighbors think. Don't worry about what other people in the room think, because what also happens is crowd mentality, right? If one person walks across here, guess what's going to happen? Other people are going to see that that person is not the boogeyman. And before you know it, you have conversation, you have community, you have networking, you have a partner for life that you would have never met if you didn't take that moment to walk across and just shake that person. Well, say hello, because we can't shake hands right now, but it just takes one.
Thank you. That's lovely. I appreciate that.
Why they're doing it. What is it in their background, their life, their history, things that have happened to them that's causing them to behave a certain way? Don't just look at that person as being, mean or unkind. And you have to go, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then you just pause and you try and work around it.
CL, I think that you're an extraordinary woman, and I'm really delighted to have this conversation with you. Thank you, CL.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CL Reed. I really appreciate the time and the thoughtfulness of your sharing. These are important topics that need to have some light shined on them. And I learned more about the concerns of solo women travelers, and some of what CL shared rang a remembered bell for me, such as paying attention to where I park after dark and simply getting into an elevator. And we all know that focusing on a niche is a smart thing to do, but who ever thought of skydiving as a short-term rental niche? It just makes me wonder what other kinds of travel niches I've missed. We have links to the show notes for the Airbnb review app and the Life 360 app that CL mentions, and you will, of course, find her contact information there as well. Thank you all for listening. I hope this podcast has been helpful for you. I hope you will join us for the next one in this series, which will be with Anthony Gant, who is the founder of At Ease, a listing platform for military travelers. Please leave your comment or review. We can be found at hostingyourhome.com, on our Facebook page at hostingyourhome, and of course you can email me at hostingyourhome@gmail.com. My Twitter handle is at hostingyourhome. If you're interested in our not-for-profit trade association for hosts, please check out Host to Host, that's the number 2, host2host.org. Until next time, stay safe.